Hello and welcome to Family Voices webinar number 2 in the series, The Nuts and Bolts of Telemedicine. Today's webinar is called, Do You Have a Device? And this is one of the essentials for a family-centered telemedicine experience. Let's get started. First, we'll begin with a statement from our funders, HRSA, the Health, Resources, and Services Administration. And we always like to start off with a quote. The computer is not a device anymore. It is an extension of your mind and your gateway to other people. So what will we talk about today? We're going to go ahead and redefine tele-what, which we will do in every one of our webinar series. We'll talk about the Fab Four, and then we'll dive into more topics related to devices. We'll talk about hardware and software. We'll define what is a device. We'll talk about teleready devices. And then we'll jump into things a little deeper, such as cameras, microphones, earbuds, and headphones. And then we'll also talk about what if you don't have a device and alternate places you may be able to obtain a device. Then we'll finally end up with how you test your device and know that you're ready for your telemedicine appointment. Let's get started. These are the learning objectives for today, and at the conclusion of this webinar, we hope that you will be able to, number one, determine if you have a teleready device with a camera and microphone for a telemedicine visit. This should be a simple yes or no answer. If you do not have a teleready device, we would hope that at the end of this webinar, you will be able to identify 2 options for obtaining a teleready device. And number 3, if you do have a teleready device, we hope you'll be able to demonstrate that you can show one way to test the device prior to your telemedicine appointment. So we're talking a lot about telemedicine, and you might be thinking, tele what? So we're going to define some of the terms that we've been using. This circle here, this is an illustration that best describes what we're talking about. This first circle is for telemedicine. What is telemedicine? Telemedicine is often used interchangeably with the word telehealth, but it is technically focused on the clinical aspects of care. Some examples of this might be a video appointment with your child's pediatrician is a telemedicine appointment, or a virtual therapy session with a young adult speech therapist would be considered a telemedicine visit as well. There's a word, though, that we often use, as we said, interchangeably. Some people use it interchangeably with telemedicine, and that is telehealth. Telehealth is technically a bit broader than telemedicine, and it really means the use of electronic information and telecommunication technologies to support things like long-distance clinical health care, patient and professional health-related education, like we're doing here today, and public health and health administration. Many different types of technologies can be used in the telehealth sphere, including video conferencing, the internet, store and forward imaging, streaming media, and landline and wireless communications. There's even a broader category, though, than telemedicine and telehealth, and that's known as digital and connected health. Digital and connected health is the use of digital, mobile, and wearable and other devices that facilitate the tracking and monitoring of your health status and your behavior outside the clinical encounter. The goal of this is to foster more patient-centered, technology-enabled, and insight-driven healthcare. Hopefully this visual will help you understand the different words that we're talking about. As we mentioned, this series of webinars, we are in the second one. And so we wanted to give you an overview of all 4 of them so you can see where we are. The first webinar was called, Are You Connected? Number 2, which we're doing right now, is Do You Have a Device? And the third webinar is called, Can You See Your Provider? And we'll talk about things like how you use different platforms to actually have a telemedicine appointment. And last but not least, we will wrap up with your family's first telemedicine appointment and some tips and tidbits on how to make that the best visit possible. As I mentioned, we are right here at number 2. So 2 other terms that you might hear as we're talking about all of these telemedicine terms, and ones that you should know, are hardware and software. Hardware talks about the actual physical devices, the computers, the phones, the tablets, and some of the things like keyboards and mouse or a microphone. Those are some of the physical devices that are used to access telemedicine. There's also something called software. Software is something that you can't necessarily see or touch, but it is a program, an app, an application that runs the hardware so that you may have a telemedicine visit. Today, though, we are going to be focusing in on hardware, and specifically, what is a device? Put very simply, a device can refer to any electronic mechanism that includes a laptop, tablet, or a smartphone. Here's some examples. You may have heard these terms like desktop, smartphone, iPad, Chromebook, tablet, laptop computer, iPhone, Galaxy Android, Kindle Fire. These are just some of the examples of different types and names of different devices. There are 3 main categories for devices: computers, tablets, and smartphones. We're going to start off by talking about computers. So what is a computer? A computer is an electronic device that manipulates information or data. See webinar number 1 if you need to understand more about what data is. You can use a computer to do lots of different things, including type documents, send emails, play games, browse the web. You can also use it to have a telemedicine appointment, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. There are 3 different types of computers. One type is called a desktop, simply because it sits on top of a desk or is stationary. It doesn't move around easily. Here's an example and a photo of a desktop. You also may have heard of a laptop. Laptops are much more mobile. They can be moved around and carried with you. They're usually lightweight and can be taken from place to place. And you may have also heard the term Chromebook. Chromebook is also a type of mobile laptop computer, but it is a bit more limited in the different types of functions that it can carry on. It's often used in the education sphere, as many students have access to Chromebooks for digital and virtual learning. Let's take a moment and watch a computer video that will give us the basics of what a computer is.
Welcome to What is a Computer? In this video, we're going to look at a desktop computer, so named because they're found on desks in offices and homes around the world. We'll learn about the main parts of a desktop computer and how to use them. There are many different types of desktop computer, and they all need to be plugged into mains power all the time. So they need to stay on the desk. This also means you can't carry them around with you. A desktop computer is made up of a screen, which can also be called a monitor. It will have a keyboard, a mouse, and a computer case or box. In most computers, the brain is inside the case. When you want to use the computer, you will need to turn it on. Press the power button on the box. Then find the power button on the screen and also turn it on. A keyboard lets you enter text and numbers, so you can type information into the computer. A mouse lets you point to and click on items on the screen. And this is one way of controlling the computer. Every computer has these gaps known as ports. We can plug cables into these ports and connect other pieces of equipment to the computer. A desktop computer comes with programs that allow you to do lots of different things. Programs are also called software or applications and let you store photos, write letters, play music and more. You will learn more about these things in more detail in the upcoming activities.
Thanks for watching that video with us. Now we're going to talk about some of the words that you have been hearing and computer words that you need to know when understanding what a computer is. We talked about a desktop, and that is a computer that is not easily moved, primarily used at a desk. We also mentioned a laptop, a portable computer that can be moved easily from one location to another. And then last but not least, the Chromebook, a laptop that runs Google Chrome's operating system and is often used in the education realm. There's some other computer words you might want to know. You may have heard computers referred to as Macs. A Mac is a computer or other device that is made by the company Apple. There's also a type of computer referred to as PC, and it really just stands for personal computer. It can represent a lot of different other types of brands other than Mac, but PCs are used for daily work or personal use, and the parts of a PC include some things like a systems unit, the monitor, the keyboard, and the mouse. Let's talk about some of those words too. A keyboard is comprised of buttons that creates letters, numbers, and symbols and other functions, and it allows you to type, much like a typewriter, but on the screen. A mouse or a touchpad or a trackball are all types of devices hardware devices that can connect to the computer and allows a person to move a cursor around on the screen. You might be wondering what a cursor is, and that's our next definition here. A cursor is an indicator, oftentimes an arrow, that's on the screen of the computer, and it shows you the position that you are in. You can move it around again with things like a mouse, the touchpad, or the trackball. And you can oftentimes, when you click those things, it allows you to set your cursor so you can begin typing. Last but not least is a screen, a monitor, or display. Basically, these three words mean the same thing. This basically is the computer's window into what is going on with their programs. It allows the user to interact with the computer and use the keyboard and the mouse, but it basically displays the information that the software is running on the computer. Let's move on to another category called tablets. This is our second category of different devices, and let's explore a little bit about what is a tablet. Very simply, a tablet is a portable computer that uses a touchscreen as its primary input device. You may have heard of some types of tablets, such as the Samsung Galaxy, maybe the Amazon Fire, and very popular one, the iPad. A Surface Pro is also a type of tablet, and these are all examples of those. Let's take a look at this video to learn a little bit more about a tablet.
Welcome to What is a Tablet? In this video, we'll be looking at one of the most popular types of computer, the tablet. A tablet is a small computer about the size of a book. It's small and light, so you can take it anywhere. Unlike a desktop computer or laptop, a tablet doesn't have a mouse or a keyboard with buttons. You control it by touching the screen with your fingers instead. The screen is called a touch screen. Just like a laptop, a tablet has an internal battery. The battery can last many hours, even days, before it runs down. You can recharge the battery by connecting the tablet to mains power with a cable. A tablet has a power switch which turns the screen on and off. The main screen of a tablet is called the home screen. It has a lot of small symbols called applications, or apps for short. Apps are small computer programs that allow you to do a range of things on your tablet. To start using an app, just tap on it with your finger. You can also use your fingers to do other things on a tablet. Swipe left or right across the screen with your finger to browse photos or turn a page. Or move your fingers up and down the screen to scroll a page. When you need to type, a keyboard will automatically appear on the screen. There are many things you can do with a tablet, and you'll learn more about them in the following activities.
Thank you for joining us for that video. When they say mains power, because it is an Australian video, they are referring to the main power outlet, or wall outlet as we call it here in the United States. So let's talk about some tablet words to know. As we discussed, a tablet is just a small portable touchscreen computer, and some of these examples that we shared were iPad, Surface Pro, Kindle, and Galaxy. A touchscreen is a computer or tablet screen or display that is controlled by your finger and not a mouse. And last but not least, a stylus is another term you might hear when talking about a tablet. It is a type of pen-shaped instrument, but instead of a ink coming out of the tip, it's a rubber piece at the tip that moves across the screen. So you can literally touch it to the touch screen and write like you're writing with a pen, but there's no ink coming out. That brings us to our third category of devices. That category is the smartphone. Let's explore a little bit about what is a smartphone. Very simply, a smartphone is a mobile device that combines cellular and mobile computing functions into one unit. There are two main categories of smartphones. One is the Apple iPhone. It runs on an operating system called iOS that is specific to Apple devices. There is also a second category. These run on an operating system known as Android, and there are many manufacturers of these types of smartphones, such as Galaxy, Nokia, Samsung, and many others. Here's some examples of these types of devices. The iPhone and others such as Galaxy, Nokia, and Samsung. Let's take a look at this smartphone video and learn a little bit more about how a smartphone works.
Welcome to What is a Smartphone? In this video, we'll explore smartphones and what you can do with them. A smartphone is a lot like a tablet computer, but small enough to fit in your pocket and able to make or receive calls. There are two main types of smartphone, Android and Apple iPhone. They look similar and do the same things, just a bit differently. Like a tablet, a smartphone has a battery inside. It can last several hours before running out of power. Connecting the smartphone to mains power lets you recharge the battery. There'll be a power switch for turning the screen on and off, and a small microphone that picks up your voice when on a phone call. Smartphones often have a large screen. Like a tablet, this is a touch screen. And you do most things, including making phone calls, by tapping it with your finger. The main screen of a smartphone is called the home screen, just like on a tablet. It has a lot of small symbols called applications, or apps for short. Apps are small computer programs that let you do a range of things on your smartphone. There are apps for games, the weather, or listening to the radio, but you don't need any apps to make or receive calls. To make a call, tap the phone button. A number pad will appear. Tap in the number with your finger. Then press the call button. You'll learn even more about smartphones in the following activities.
Thank you so much for joining us for that smartphone video. Now let's talk about some smartphone words that you might need to know. As we've said, a smartphone is a mobile phone that performs many functions and acts as a small computer. Some examples are iPhones and the Samsung Galaxy. This is a bit different though than a cell phone, which is a phone with access to a cell tower that makes calls. But this type of phone does not necessarily have video capabilities if it is not a smartphone. So it is important to know the difference. Let's pause for a moment and share a family story, specifically a story about how a device can help a family. This story comes to us from the palliative care world for children with special health care needs. And this story is about a telehealth toolkit that was provided to a family. So when the pandemic hit and the types of visits for this family's son changed overnight, they were no longer able to go in person to see his doctors due to the pandemic. This family received a telemedicine toolkit from their palliative care provider. As pictured here, this toolkit included a tablet, a hotspot, some connector cables, instructions, and even a pulse oximeter. The mom of this family shared with us that this kit allowed us to connect with our providers for our telemedicine appointments, but this device also allowed us to connect to electronic health records. It has been so helpful to have a device for our family and home health to use just for communication and telemedicine with providers. We are so thankful for this family sharing this story with us, and we know that devices can be life-changing in the world of telemedicine for families, because without a device, you cannot access your provider. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about what a teleready device is. There are three things that make up a teleready device. We've talked a lot about the computer, tablets, and smartphones. That's number one. They have to work and have power. Number two is a microphone. A microphone is required for a teleready device so that the doctor or provider on the other end can hear you and your family. These can be things like internal or external microphones, or headphones or earbuds that contain a microphone. We'll talk lots more about this in just a few slides. And last but not least, the third item for a teleready device is a camera. This can be something like an internal camera or an external webcam. And again, we'll talk much more about these in just a moment. So here are some pictures of what a teleready device might look like. As we talked about, the computer, the tablets, and the smartphones are step number one. The microphones and headphones with the microphone are step number two. And last but not least, the cameras are very important so that your provider can see you as well. Let's go into a little bit more detail about cameras. Say cheese. There are two basic types of cameras. Here in the small red circle, you can see this is a camera on a laptop. And in the big circle, it's just blown up a little bit because it's usually has a dot with a light and a little window that behind that contains the camera's lens. The second type of camera is a webcam that can be added to a computer externally. Microphones are this next piece that we want to dig into a little bit further. And there are many different types of microphones. Again, here you can see a slight arrow at the top there. Some microphones are built in and they're called an internal microphone. And we saw that even in the smartphone video where it's sometimes at the bottom of the phone, a little hole for the microphone. There's also external microphones like this one that's a desktop, sits on a desktop and can be connected to your device with a cord. Many times people use headsets that contain a microphone, and this can also serve as the microphone for your telemedicine appointment. And last but not least, the ever popular wired and wireless earbuds also contain, some of them contain microphones, but you do have to check and make sure they contain that before you have them for your appointment. So let's dig in a little bit more with earbuds and headphones, because those can be a little bit confusing. Some contain microphones and some don't. And so we get the question asked often, can I use my earbuds or my headphones for my telemedicine appointment? And the answer to that is, do they contain a microphone? If they contain a microphone, then you can use them. But if not, they're probably not best to use for your appointment. Let's look a little bit more closely. Here's two different types of headsets, or headphones. The one on the left, where you can see the microphone there sticking out, is an okay headset for a telemedicine appointment. However, the one on the right, because it does not contain a microphone, will not be a good choice for a telemedicine appointment because your provider or your doctor will not be able to hear you speak to them. You will only be able to hear them. Let's look a little bit more closely at the earbuds. The one on the left here is okay for a telemedicine appointment because it contains a microphone and a microphone button. The ones on the right, though, are not a good choice for a telemedicine appointment because, again, there's no microphone included with those. Those are just ones for being able to hear music or hear audio, but you cannot speak. So those would not be a good choice. There are 3 teleready devices that you can use. We've talked about those, the computers, the tablets, and the smartphones. But I know what many of you might be thinking. What if I don't have a computer, a tablet, or a smartphone? What if I don't have access to those or have a teleready device? What am I supposed to do for my telemedicine appointment? We'd like to share with you a couple options for getting a device in your community. There may be a number of places that you can reach out to, connect with, to find a device or to have a loaner device that you might be able to use for your appointment. There are many community-based organizations that have devices available that you might reach out to. Those would be specific to your community. There's also USEDs who have loaner programs. So you can look to the USED in your area. They're often associated with universities because it stands for University Centers. And so if you have a university in your community or a college in your university, you might reach out to them. There's something called Title V for children and youth with special health care needs at the state level. Each state has a Title V department, and some of these departments have resources and ways to access devices for families. A library is another great place. Almost all communities have a library close to them, and libraries oftentimes have loaner devices that you might be able to use in the context of the library that you might be able to do a telemedicine appointment with. There are many foundations and charities out there, such as Easter Seals and Variety, who have programs for communication devices for children, which are oftentimes iPads, that can also be used for a telemedicine appointment if need be. One option is that you can drive to a medical hub and have a telemedicine appointment at a medical hub. This might be an office where they have equipment available, and perhaps your specialist is hours and hours away. Perhaps your child's cardiologist is hours away, but you can go to a community health center or maybe even your pediatrician's office where they might have a device available and you can meet with your cardiologist rather than driving the hours to where they are located. As you know, this webinar is done by Family Voices, and many of the Family Voices offices have some equipment that might be able to be loaned to a family or borrowed by a family for a telemedicine appointment. Since there's Family Voices chapters in all different states, it's best to find your local office and connect with them. And then if you are eligible for Medicaid, many families who qualify for Medicaid can get access to a cell phone if they do not have one and meet certain criteria through Medicaid. So that is another place to ask. And last but not least, many of the schools, due to the virtual learning that's been going on, have issued Chromebooks and tablets and iPads and laptops to students. So those devices, when not being used for school, could be used for a telemedicine appointment. There's one other website we wanted to make you aware of, and it's an organization that's specifically focused on getting everyone access to devices for learning and for education and for health, and that is called everyoneon.org. So check their website out. There's a zip code finder, and then ask about them in your own community. All right, we're going to switch gears to our last topic here, and that is testing your device. We want to make sure before we have a telemedicine appointment that all of our equipment is ready. Even though we know we may have a teleready device that has all the things, we want to make sure all the things work, and that includes testing the camera and the microphone. So we'll start off by testing your camera. There's a website here called webcammictest.com or webcammictest.com. When you go to that website, you will see this screen, and it says check your webcam online. When you click the button here, right there, this screen will pop up, and you will see that you'll need to give your computer access. It asks to access your webcam. When you click allow, then if your webcam is working, a picture, your picture, or your face, or whatever your webcam is pointing at, will pop up in this box. And that's a way to know that your webcam is working. You can also test your microphone at the same website. You would just type in webcammictest.com. When you do that, this website again will show up, and you can click on the button here, check your microphone. You'll need to give the computer permission again to access your microphone, but once you do that, you can start speaking into the air, and these white bars should show up. So when you're quiet, no bars should show up, and when you speak, these white bars should spike up into the air. If you're doing this and you're speaking out loud and no bars are showing up in this window, the chances are your microphone is not connected, and you may need to do some troubleshooting. To test your camera and microphone on your smartphone, there's another website that, two other websites that we recommend that seem a little bit more mobile friendly. The first one is called webcammictest.com. And when you go to that on your phone, you'll get a box here, and it asks you to test your webcam. This one will also ask you for permission to access your webcam, and you're going to want to allow that. And once that's clicked, you're going to need to test the webcam button again. If your webcam is working, you should see it just below the testing area, an image coming through of what your webcam sees. When I did this one, I was aiming it at my ceiling, so you can see my ceiling fan there. Whenever you do this for your mic test, you want to go to the website called mictest.com. You'll see a similar image there, and you're gonna want to give it access. So you're going to click here. Then you're going to give it permission to access your microphone by clicking allow. And then last but not least, you're going to say, test my mic once the green bar comes up. And then you're going to speak into the air, saying hello or making some noise. And this beautiful rainbow graphical presentation there of your voice will come through if your microphone is working. So that brings us to the big question. Is your device teleready? Let's just review those three things one more time. You have your computer, your tablet, or your smartphone that works and has power. Check. You have your microphone. Remember, those are the internal or external microphones, the earbuds with the microphone or the headset with the microphone. Check. And finally, you have your camera, which includes the internal or external camera or the webcam camera, and you've tested that and that works. Check. If you have 3 green checks, your device is teleready. Congratulations. You are ready to have your telemedicine appointment. So that brings us to the end of this webinar, and we just want to wrap up with one more quote, which we think makes us chuckle. I'll call it a smartphone when I yell, "Where's my phone?" And it yells back, "Down here in the couch cushions." Anyway, we hope you have a wonderful day. If there are any things that you need assistance with in trying to get yourself or a loved one a teleready device so that you can access telemedicine, our Family Voices affiliates are ready to help. You can go to familyvoices.org, and there is a map there where you can locate the nearest Family Voices office to you or a loved one in your state or territory. We hope that you've learned a lot about devices, and you know now whether you have a teleready or non-teleready device. And if you don't have a teleready device, you have some ideas of where you might find one. We sure do thank you for your time, and we ask that you check out the next webinar in our series, in our 4-part telemedicine series. Thank you and goodbye.